Uh, so, we'll back up a little bit. Today, what we're going to talk about, and it'll say in the title, and I promise you it's not clickbait. I want to talk about horsepower and torque, and more specifically, chasing modifications or doing modifications specifically to chase those numbers. What's up? J Street Moto here, and welcome back to the channel. We'll back up a little bit. Today, what we're going to talk about, and it'll say in the title, and I promise you it's not clickbait. I want to talk about horsepower and torque, and more specifically, chasing modifications or doing modifications specifically to chase those numbers. Now, let me give you a little background about why I'm even doing this video. So, since I got Darla, I picked her up December 30th, 2017. Since I got her, I've always been kicking around the idea of, well, if I do some modifications to the motor, what are those modifications going to be? Why am I doing them? Etc. And I think to a certain extent, I'm not the only guy that thinks this when when we first get our motorcycles, we start thinking about, what do I want to do to it to make it mine? But then at some point, we start talking about, or thinking about at least, performance modifications. And, and what benefit they're going to give me. So I figure since I have been really just thinking about this stuff for the better part of 5 years, I might as well talk about it with you guys. And I'd love to hear your feedback in the comments, once you've heard my thoughts on it. But I'd love to hear if you think the same way or feel the same way. It'd be kind of interesting to see, because I don't think I'm the only guy that thinks like this or that feels this way. Now, when it comes to performance modifications, I really think one of the drivers behind it is 90% of everything we see on YouTube associated with motorcycling is in some way, shape, or form a modification on the bike. And usually it's about chasing horsepower and torque. Then you have your friends and your buddies who are all, they're doing changes to their bikes because they're trying to get horsepower and torque. And, and I mean, some of the stuff gets pretty expensive. David hasn't told you what he did to his bike, and I'm not going to tell you. But there was a lot of work done to David's motorcycle. And for David, it made sense because in David's mind, and he told me on more than one occasion, he's like, when I'm riding my bike, I wish I had more performance out of it. I wish it would behave differently. Wish I could get a little more out of it. I wish I could do this. The list goes on. And that got me thinking about my own bike. And, what were the real reasons for why I was wanting to do some of the things I'm wanting to do to the motorcycle? And the thing that really, kind of rekindled the whole discussion in my own head about it, because I'll talk about it to myself for maybe a month, and then I'll back burner it in my brain and not think about it for 10, 12 months, and then go back to it. Well, one of the things that really got me thinking about it currently is the fact that my clutch is going to have to be replaced because it's starting to slip in third gear. And so that got me thinking, and I'm like, well, what do I really want to do to the bike? And that made me, so how I decided to approach it was, I'm not going to think about the numbers. And we'll talk about that a little later, but I'm not going to think about the numbers. Instead, I kind of approached it from the standpoint of, I've done a lot of riding on Darla. This bike's got close to 63,000 miles on it, and every single one of them, I've been in the saddle. So I've ridden her a lot of different places. And the rational conclusion I came to has been, there's never been a moment, never been a single moment in time where I needed this bike to be able to do something and it failed to do it the way that I expected it to or the way that I wanted it to. So for me, I've never been a guy that's about, oh, what's your dyno sheet say? Because I don't really give a shit about the numbers. What I care about is, how does it feel in the saddle? What's the bike feel like when I'm really getting on it? What's the bike feel like when I'm pushing it? What does it feel like to me in the seat, on my ass? What does that feel like? Because that's really where, in my opinion, that's really where, as motorcyclists, we recognize or appreciate the horsepower and torque numbers. So, starting from that position, I was like, there's never been a time that she really has done what I've asked her to do. There's never been a time when I needed more to be able to accelerate on that on-ramp. There's never been a time where I needed quicker throttle response or quicker handling response to avoid hitting a car that she wasn't able to do in the stock form that she sits in today. So after realizing that, I guess is a good way to put it, that got me thinking, well then, all this stuff I want to do to the motor, is it really a need or is it just a want? And if it's a want, is it worth the money? Because, the reality is, you can go out there and do so much stuff to your bike that, the last quote that I got to rebuild the motor the way that I want it, not the way that I need it, I can buy another motorcycle. I really can. I can buy a second bike. It'd have to be a used bike, and it'd probably have to be something like a sport bike, which, on the one hand, is actually maybe a good idea, because if what I'm looking for is to go a little quicker or have a little more, be a little faster, have a little more fun on the bike, not necessarily worried about, how comfortable it is to ride really long distances, then maybe getting a second bike makes more financial sense than doing a boatload of work to Darla. And that's kind of where I've come down, is does it make sense to do it? And then that got me thinking, well, I'm going to have to replace the clutch. And I know full well when I replace the clutch, I'm going to see a performance boost. When you start getting into some of these aftermarket clutches, though, they really do not lose any power. When you engage the clutch, you are locked in. There is zero loss, if you will. So I know that from a seat perspective, not from a number perspective, but from a feel in the seat, my bike's going to feel different when I put the clutch in that I want to put in it. I know this. So that got me thinking. It's like, bike's got 63,000 miles on it, so I really want to dump a bunch of money into a top end, increase the horsepower by 60-65% and torque 60 to 65% above what it comes stock, and put that all in a transmission that's got 63,000 miles on it. Or do I want to change the entire motor out to get the horsepower and torque that I want, not that I need, but that I want, and I don't really know the answer yet. I'm definitely leaning more towards, if I go that route, I'll call it the nuclear option, right? If I go that route, I'm for sure going to do the swap versus building it out. And the reason for that is quite simple. I don't want to run the risk of putting a bunch of torque and horsepower into an old transmission, and I don't want to incur the expense of switching the transmission out when I build out the top end of the motor. So for me, it just kind of made more sense. It'll cost a little more money, but it's still going to be cheaper than, I think, building it and swapping out the transmission. So, neither here nor there. Because now I've gotten to the point where I'm like, well, the motor's got a lot of miles on it. And what if, as I and fixing normal, everyday wear and tear items on the motorcycle. Stuff it does break down over time. I mean, these things aren't made to last eternally. Now, granted, I've been very, very happy with Darla and with how she has never let me down. I'm extremely happy with that. But then again, my bike never sits, and I think there's a lot to be said for that. I think a lot of people have mechanical difficulties because their bike sits for a period of time, whether that time is 1 month or 5 months out of the year, and you're riding it the rest of the time. My bike is constantly running, or is running at least 2 to 3 times a week, every week, year-round. I think that does something for the longevity of the motorcycle itself, but that's a whole different discussion. So, I'm conflicted, and I can't believe that I'm the only guy out there that is thinking, oh, shit, well, is it really worth it for me to do that? Why am I doing it? Why am I going to add those performance mods? Because, the bike's doing what I want it to do, and has been doing what I want it to do the entire time I've owned it. And there's been 2 times in my entire time owning this bike, there have been 2 times that I really was like, damn, I wish I had more. The first one was when David let me ride Angry Black Betty. When I got on her and ripped the throttle after he had the work done, every fiber and cell in my being was like, I've got to do this to my motorcycle. So that's the first time. Second time was when we were running US 50 on our way back from California. We all decided to line up on that road and go for it. And Juan and I kind of hung together because there really isn't a whole lot of difference between the 114 and the 107. And we were both stock. We got hung together. David let us get probably, quarter mile in front of him before I saw his bike lurch because he got on the throttle then. And, I mean, he ran us down and blew past us as if we were in reverse going down the road backwards. It was insane. So those are the only 2 times out of 4.5 years that I've really been like, wish my bike had more. It'd be nice to have more. So, I feel like I kind of want to just keep her stock. Now, with that said, there are some things that I think I'm going to do irrespective of anything else. I do kind of want to change the cam. I do. I think a cam swap makes a lot of sense, basically going to a stage 2 with the motor. I still have the stock exhaust heads on here. I still have everything stock. I still got the stock air cleaner. Now, with that said, I think I want to maybe go to a stage 2. If for no other reason, the cross member for the exhaust pipe that goes underneath the center line of the bike and crosses over to the clutch side, there's a bracket that Harley installs there to hold that pipe up against the frame. And really, it's kind of not needed because of how everything is done on the exhaust, how it's all kind of held together anyway. But that bracket over time, it's metal and it's a pretty poor design. That bracket over time gets loose and starts to rattle. What I mean by that is it starts to rattle, and it really starts to rattle. And, so whenever I'm sitting at a traffic light and I'm idling, I hear that rattle, and it bothers the crap out of me. So there's a part of me that wants to swap out the exhaust manifolds just to be able to get rid of that rattle, because I'm tired of it. And I have been unable to figure out a way to correct it, if you will, in a way that's satisfying to me. So yeah, there's that. And if I change out the exhaust, I might as well change out the air cleaner. If I'm going to do all that stuff, why not also replace the cam? I'm going to have to throw a tuner on the bike anyway and get a real tune done. Now, that's one thing that I made a decision with a long time ago. I've never been one of those guys that wants one of those auto tuners. So think like the Fuel Pack 3s and those things. I've got zero desire to have something like that on the bike. If I'm going to put a tuner on it, I want it to be something that basically I can take it to someone that has a dyno that knows how to tune motorcycles, and they can tune the bike for me. And tune it to my preferences is a good way of putting it. But yeah, so that's kind of where I've come down on this whole thing. So you know, and here's what I will say: if I do these modifications, irrespective of what I do, whether I end up going with the motor, whether I end up, you know, really building the motor out, or whether I end up just, you know, replacing a couple things here and there and doing those modifications, there will be installation videos that are associated with all of that, because I intend to do, well, everything short of the motor swap and the, you know, if I really, you know, just blow the whole motor apart and rebuild it, I'm going to have somebody do that. I'll pay someone to do that, because I don't mind messing around with mechanical stuff, but I am not a mechanic. So I don't want to, I'm that person that believes, why would I, you know, do something that's going to end up taking me 8 hours when I can pay a professional and knows what the hell they're doing, and they can get it done in maybe an hour. I'm probably going to go with the professional just because my time is valuable to me. And I'd rather spend more time riding than having the bike out of commission for 3-4 months while I'm waiting for me to get my shit together and be able to put the bike back together and get it roadworthy. So, but yeah, I'm interested in the rest of you guys. Drop a comment and tell me, is this something that you guys think about too? Do we, as a collective community, do we think that pretty much, you know, between YouTube and our buddies and all the forums that we're on and all that stuff, that encourages that constant belief or need to, I need to do some more shit to my bike? Do we think that those things are encouraged by those social media outlets? Right? I personally think that they are, but I'd be interested to hear what you guys think. And am I the only one that's thinking the way that I'm thinking about this? I'd like to know. So drop it in the comments. I know I rambled on this video. We talked a little while, and it's a lot longer than I expected it to be. But I just kind of wanted to tell you what my thought process was and how I was thinking about it, why I was thinking it, the things I was thinking, and what they, you know, the reasons behind it. Because I thought maybe I'm not the only one that's thinking those things, or that is feeling that way about it these days. So, yeah, if you like what I'm doing, I'm super stoked. The channel's up to, I think, 145 subscribers now, and that's almost double from what it was, you know, about a week and a half ago. I got a video that went over 17,000 views. It's currently over 17,000 views right now, and that's just insane to me. So yeah, it's pretty cool what's happening. So, and that's all a credit to you guys that decide to take the time to watch my stuff. So if you're liking what I'm doing, subscribe to the channel, like the video, leave a comment and give me a recommendation on some of the stuff you'd like to see going forward. There's been a few videos that I've done that were specifically related to address something that someone commented in another video. And I kind of dug that, because now you guys are sort of, you know, you're directing the content on the channel too. You feel like you're part of it, or at least I hope you feel like you're part of it. I feel like you guys are part of it. So yeah, that's it for today. Give a shout out to my wife, Miss J Street Moto. She is her birthday is today, and it is a milestone birthday. I'm not going to say what milestone it is. I'm just going to acknowledge that it's a milestone birthday, and well, acknowledge her for supporting me in all the crazy shit that I do. And I think all of us can relate to that. If you're married and you ride, I guarantee you in some way, shape, or form, your spouse is extremely supportive of what you do. But yeah, so that's it for this one. Hope you guys have enjoyed it. Hope I haven't talked about, stuff in a too convoluted way. I don't know. I'll have to listen to it. Might end up having to remake this one. We shall see. Go the cop. But yeah, always ride safe.